What's up, guys? My name's Stu, and today we're going to be talking about a little project I've been working on. So, fun fact, my favorite fighter from Star Wars is the Naboo fighter from The Phantom Menace, which, I know, people have plenty to say about The Phantom Menace, but I've always loved this fighter because it's very sleek, it's very smooth, it's very different from anything else we've seen in Star Wars, and it really just, like, I don't know, I always thought this was a cool-looking ship, but one of the things that I've been thinking about lately is, what if you kind of took the basic design elements of the Naboo fighter and turned it into a ship from Star Trek? I had been thinking about this for a while, and so eventually I got to the point where I decided to commission an artist. So I contacted Aventine ISS, who did an absolutely amazing job at coming up with this concept art. And as you can see, it captures a lot of like the core aspects that you expect from the original Naboo fighter. It's got these big engine pods along the side. It's got these struts along here, cockpit over here, the little bulbous thing over here where the droid should be, as well as the pointed tail section back here, but with a lot of Star Trek elements added along into it. Some of the lines are not quite as smooth on here as on the original Naboo, kind of giving it a little bit of a look shared with the Valkyrie class fighter, which was recently introduced into Star Trek Online, originally introduced in Star Trek Invasion. Add a little deflector dish down here at the front, and of course the big engine pods from the original Naboo are replaced with warp nacelles. I chose the Odyssey warp nacelles for 3 reasons. 1, you guys know how obsessed I am with the Odyssey class. 2, because I really wanted this ship to kind of blend in with Star Trek Online's design aesthetic. I really like the whole design language that Star Trek Online has for its Starfleet ships, so I wanted this to kind of blend in with that. And 3, because I really like the smooth curves on the Odyssey class, and I felt like those really blended in well with the Naboo fighter's original design, so I felt like this complemented that really well. Another reason why I really wanted to go with the Star Trek Online look for this fighter is because Star Trek Online has that kind of two-toned black on white hull look for all of its ships, and I felt like that did a really good job of kind of paying homage to the original Naboo fighter, because the Naboo has that chromium on gold look for it, so I felt like this two-toned look really did a good job of paying homage to this two-toned look. A lot of these smaller details were added from Aventine, like the deflector dish, the RCS thrusters, the little phaser strips as like a little point defense system. That was all Aventine. Ooh, like I said, they did an absolutely amazing job in like bringing this thing to life. There were some key things I really had to think about when like coming up with the design of this thing, like where certain things were going to get moved, what to do with certain other elements, like the impulse engines. I was clearly replacing the main engine pods from the original Naboo fighter, so I had to figure out where the sublight engines would go on this thing, and that's one of the nice things about kind of taking design elements from the Odyssey class, because the Odyssey has these auxiliary impulse engines along the pylons of the warp engines. So I just kind of took that idea and put them along here on these struts on the Naboo fighter here. I also wanted to make sure there was something kind of dome-shaped after the cockpit, because while Star Trek doesn't really have any sort of direct comparison to like astromech droids, I wanted to make sure there was something back here to kind of emulate that element of the profile from the original Naboo fighter. I also had Aventine go and do some sketch work on what the rest of the ship might look like. Let's get me out of the way. There we go. But yeah, you can kind of get an idea of like the rest of the profile of the ship from other angles, just to give you an idea of what the whole thing looks like. This is meant to be kind of a concept art kind of thing, so this wouldn't necessarily be like what the final product would look like, but it's just kind of meant to give you an idea here. Like it changes up some things on the original Naboo, like the side profile is a little different. Aventine kind of changed up the bottom a little bit to kind of emulate how the bottom section of the Odyssey, it kind of has that section where it's kind of like holding in the secondary hull. Here, you can see that here, how this section kind of comes down here and kind of like, it's like it's sort of holding in the secondary hull. Aventine wanted to kind of recreate that here by creating this little section that kind of holds in the bottom portion of the fighter here, which I really liked. We've also got some other details down here, like the micro torpedo launcher down here, and some landing gear added to the warp engines, because obviously the ship would need to land somehow. There's also an auxiliary impulse engine in the aft section, kind of underneath the tail, kind of like where you would, like where that booster engine thing on the revamped N1 from the Mandalorian, kind of where that would be. Yeah, this is kind of a basic idea of what the ship could look like. Eventually, I do want to get like a full 3D model rendered of this thing, but that costs money and takes time. And yeah, I need to find a 3D artist too. I don't know who to pester about this, but yeah, this is kind of the basic idea of what the thing would look like. So, a little bit of lore off this thing. I'm calling it the Phantom class fighter as a not so subtle nod to the movie that the N1 originally appeared in. So my thinking with the timeline on this thing is, the Starfleet already had the Typhon class of the Valkyries, serving in the latter part of the 24th century. Then the Klingon War starts up in the early 25th century. And while the Typhon and the Valkyries did a decent job of countering the Klingons' Vokuv class and the Todush class fighters, Starfleet would eventually want to introduce a fighter that could push the limits of what a single pilot fighter could do. Wanting to move past the typical fighter role of the Valkyrie class, the Phantom class would serve as a more multi-purpose type craft. Not only is the Phantom more heavily armed, having quad phasers, point defense phaser strips, and a micro-quantum torpedo launcher, this thing also is more heavily armored, having a dibernium-laced hull much like the starships of that time period. That's the darker sections that you see on a lot of the Star Trek Online era ships. The Phantom class would also feature a more powerful warp drive, meaning it would be able to have a much wider operational range than previous generations of fighter craft. But the real power behind the Phantom class is its modularity, because you see this dome section behind the cockpit? These are meant to be interchangeable pieces of equipment. This one right here is a omnidirectional phaser turret, but this could be swapped out with something like a more powerful shield generator that could better shield the ship itself or other ships in its squadron. Or you could swap in a more powerful computer core to increase the capability of the ship's ECM and ECCM capabilities. Or something like an enhanced sensor suite, or even a cloaking device, maybe even like a small quantum slipstream core to further increase the operational range of the ship. The main idea being that a whole squadron of these Phantom-class fighters, each equipped with a different pod, would be able to handle a wide variety of different tasks and threats. When I showed this off on Twitter a while back, a number of people asked if this pod could accommodate an exocomp, which are basically Star Trek's closest parallel to droids, and, I don't see why not. I didn't want it to make it, like a standard feature of the Phantom class, because, exocomps aren't slaves like droids seem to be in Star Wars, so I didn't want it to be like a standard feature of the Phantom, but yeah, I suppose you could make a pod that would accommodate an exocomp as, serve as like a co-pilot for the pilot of the Phantom. So yeah, this is the Phantom class, my own original fighter for Star Trek. Or at least sort of original. Obviously, it's clearly based off of the N1 from Star Wars, and I had a ton of help from Aventine. Seriously, a lot of this was entirely their doing, and it's just these small little details that I didn't even think about, like, the deflector. They added this little bit of art, which I'm pretty sure is just the Odyssey design logo, but I love the idea of there being like some art there for like to represent like what ship the fighter is assigned to. And the yellow around the cockpit and this part of the body, that was Aventine's doing. I think that was meant to be just like an homage to the Valkyrie, because I know the Valkyrie has like gold outline around its cockpit. But at the same time, it also works because, the original N1 is also gold. And while it's not the exact same shade, I feel like it does like a good job of, giving an homage to the original fighter that this is based off of. But at the same time, I feel like this stripe down here, I feel like you could like change the color of that depending on like, different squadrons. So you can like give different squadrons different colors. I think that would be kind of cool. But just on the body, I feel like the base color of the cockpit should stay this shade of gold. Yeah, if you're not following Aventine already, I'll link their Twitter and Blue Sky accounts down below. You should definitely give them a follow. They have a lot of other really great Star Trek art that I feel like you guys would get a kick out of. But yeah, like I said, that is my Phantom class. Let me know what you guys think down below in the comments, and while you're down there, be sure to like and subscribe and hit that bell for notifications. If you would like to further support the channel, you can hit that join button to become a member, or you can find the link to the merch store down below, or if you're ever shopping on the Epic Game Store, be sure to use my content creator code STU1701. Any of these really help me out, and I really do appreciate it. Either way, though, thank you so much for watching. My name's Stu, and I will see you guys next time.